Insidious, The Last Key is directed by Adam Robitel, written by Leigh Whannell and starring Lin Shaye, Angus Sampson and Leigh Whannell. And this is the fourth installment in the Insidious franchise. I've actually watched all the other three, and just a quick recap, I love the first one of the first horror movies that I watched, and it stuck with me. And even to this day, some of the sequences still creep me out with the bride in black. That gets to me. And also the second one is a lot of fun. Not as good, it feels like a greatest hits of the first film in terms of scare, but it is very fun, and Patrick Wilson is great with his dual performance, playing almost a Jack Nicholson type character. And then the third one came out, which was a prequel, and it was okay. It's very boring in my opinion. Even rewatching it recently, I was like, wow, nothing is happening. That film truly was boring, and the main difference is that James Wan didn't direct it, and James Wan is one of my favorite horror directors, especially if you take into account the first Saw movie and The Conjuring. He is a great director. But still, now we got the fourth installment, and Adam Robitel did The Taking of Deborah Logan, which is one of the best found footage horror films out there, which isn't saying much, but it's still very well made. And this film was better than the third one. And this time around it's set right before the events of the first Insidious. And we follow Lin Shaye as she goes with her sidekicks to her childhood home. And there are spirits there are secrets from her past that she has to uncover, yada yada yada. This is one of those prequel stories that you've seen countless times. But I have to say, there are some very good things about this film. And even more bad ones. So the first good thing is that I enjoyed it. It was a watchable, entertaining, fun movie that went by relatively fast for me. I know that a lot of people are finding it boring. I'm just a sucker for this type of movies. Even though I don't really love all of them, I just enjoy watching them. And Lin Shaye is great. She's 74 years old. She's leading a horror franchise. It's so good to see, so good, and she's great. Then we get to some of the more negative aspects, the scares. This movie wasn't particularly scary, and honestly it didn't even try to be, which was weird. Like, except for a couple of sequences, this was relatively tame compared to the other ones. They have an interesting monster, interesting design for the demon of this film with keys instead of fingers, but other than that it isn't utilized all that much. And if I'm not mistaken, they kind of added it very late into the production, or it wasn't even supposed to be in the original script, something like that. But we got it. It's cool looking, better than the Man Who Can't Breathe from the third one, but still it isn't particularly memorable. And the real problem with this film is that they don't know what the fuck they're doing story-wise. From a terrible script, just lines of dialogue that are bad lines of dialogue, jokes that don't land, the sidekicks, Tucker and Specs. They were there for comedic purposes, they were fun, they relieved a lot of tension, but this time around they got annoying to me. Especially with the freaking she's a sidekick, we're sidekicks jokes, and everyone was like, what? People in the audience were, that's not funny. And people in the movie were saying, what are you talking about? Like, everyone doesn't like that. And yet, they keep on making the same joke 2 or 3 times in the movie. It's bad. And also they introduced some new characters, like the nieces of Lin Shaye's character, just so that we can continue this franchise until it's dry. So in the future movies we can have the nieces helping Tucker and Specs and going further and talking to Elise with her. It's a shameless attempt at keeping this franchise going. I think they should have just either continued with the freaking cliffhanger they had in chapter 2, or with the cliffhanger they had in chapter 3, but right now they're really making it up as they go along, and that's unfortunate. But still, this movie was watchable, just the right level of enjoyable. Not particularly memorable. It is fun in all the wrong ways, like you're laughing when you aren't supposed to, and cringing when you aren't supposed to. And the ending, it has a reference that makes no sense and takes a lot of charm out of the original movie. I'm not going to say more about it, but it kind of retcons one thing and I'm like, no, We didn't need this explanation. It was fine as it was in the first film. But they did it. But still, I would honestly recommend this film only to die-hard fans of the franchise and horror fans in general, because otherwise it's relatively lackluster. It is decent direction, better than the third one, nice production design, great sound design, it still works, the jump scares are still effective, even though there aren't that many scary jump scares. This time around they had a lot of fake outs, which was surprising. That's one of the things I loved about this franchise. There were no fake outs. Every single jump scare had like a demon or something scary that scares the characters. Here, not always. But still, guys, have you watched Insidious The Last Key? Do you like it or dislike it? And which is your favorite entry in the Insidious franchise? Tell me in the comments below. Thanks for watching, to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.